Alrighty everyone, hello. And now, today, as we all gather here with our kitchen witchiness, there's something I really want to talk about that I've been meaning to talk about for a while, and that's the issue of witchy cookbooks and why you probably would be better off not getting them for actually using as a cookbook. Now, in terms of the type of books I'm talking about, I do have like about 3 that I would actually consider cookbooks, or at least heavily involved in cooking, and that is Zuzazak's Slavic Kitchen Alchemy. That is also the Natural Witches Cookbook by Lisana Wallace. And then lastly, we have Melissa Jane Madara's The Witch's Feast, A Kitchen Grimoire. As a side note, I guess this one counts too, but I also have Witchcraft Cocktails. The reason I say that these are more things to not use as cookbooks is because they have a lot of great information in them. And so, okay, I have these books and I like them a lot, don't get me wrong. In fact, you've seen me hold up this one a few times before when I'm talking about certain kitchen witchy things. And so, you might be confused as to why I'm saying I wouldn't recommend these for cooking, but it's honestly because what these books do for me is a lot more than actual cooking. These books, yes, they do have recipes in them, and some really cool recipes too. Hi, Bila, come in. They have really cool recipes in them, but the thing is, they're not necessarily recipes that are super accessible. I mean, here we have the Feast of the Summer Solstice, which is burrata panzanella with lemon balm vinaigrette, summer corn risotto with basil and olives, roasted beetroot with labneh, sumac, and crispy shallots, and then baked peaches with buttermilk gelato. I mean, yeah, it's supposed to be a feast, but that's a lot. That's a lot of stuff, and especially for people who maybe, aren't insane pros in the kitchen, that's overwhelming, too. I mean, there's, all of these different parts for ingredients, there's all of these different directions, and again, if you're having a party, honestly, that's why I would recommend this book, because this book is all about feasts, right? Big, elaborate things. And they do have smaller things too, right? Like dandelion and orange fertuli. That's very nice. I mean, they have, smaller things. They have all these other kinds of simple dishes. You could just make one piece of a meal or incorporate it into a smaller meal. Sure, right? But reasonably, we all know that even a lot of times with regular cookbooks, when the foods and the descriptions and the direction list gets too long, we start tuning out. There are some things that I would love to try, right? The Feast of Aquarius has duck breast with blueberry balsamic sauce and then a honey, walnut, and goat cheese tart. That sounds amazing, but I've never made a tart before. And also, I mean, it just seems a little complicated for us folks who are just trying to get some everyday cooking done, right? At the same time, here's where this book really shines to me, and that's in actually giving different kinds of ideas as to what flavors or what types of foods go with a certain element or a certain sign or a certain planet or a certain feast or a certain holiday, moon phase, anything like that. Because the key for really anything for me is application, not so much recreating things other people have done. And of course, when we start off with longer written pieces that are bigger introductions about those kinds of ideas and explaining those concepts, that makes the book worth it for me, even if I never cook a single thing out of the actual recipe book, because there's more than just directions in a recipe. There is knowledge in here, there's stories, there's things that are actually worth talking about. Likewise, with the Natural Witches Cookbook, a lot of these things are also supposed to be kind of quasi-healing, physically, right? They're supposed to have some kind of herbalist component to them that is a bit more than just the magical part, because a lot of people forget that the mundane still matters in food, and while you can absolutely charm candy or fast food or anything else with color magic or just using whatever ingredients are inside, actual nutrition plays a huge factor in supporting your body alongside actually getting the magic done. So this book is really interesting for that reason. It has all different kinds of practical health tips alongside the actual magical part, and the recipes are broken down really easily, indexed nicely, and just they look great. I mean, they look colorful and fun, and that's all well and good. It's just that, where the hell am I getting quail eggs from, madam? Those are the times where you pull out the old world wisdom and just go get a regular goddamn egg from the store. But some of these are honestly fairly simple, and this is a cookbook I honestly would recommend people have just on hand because, I mean, balsamic carrots is not a complicated idea. I mean, the ingredients are literally just carrots, balsamic vinegar, salt, and pepper. You can make a sauce to go with it that's a little more complicated, right? Squash and coconut cream and cumin and curry and cardamom all mixed together. But even that's not that complicated. So this is a kind of book that, like, you could absolutely use it for the actual recipes too, which is kind of rare among books of this genre. But still, the reason I'm getting this isn't so much for cooking as it is for the actual knowledge in it, right? Like, yeah, tell me about why berries and the element of air can make people just as happy and full of, you know, good chemicals and good other things as, like, chocolate can. Hell yeah, tell me about that Euphoria turkey. With... oh, the names in these books, dude. But still, right? Poultry contains anti-stress properties, but turkey is particularly rich in tryptophan, an amino acid that is the precursor of serotonin, the happiness hormone. The lentils that are served with it help increase serotonin production thanks to their complex carbohydrates and high levels of folate, like vitamin B9, which may protect from symptoms of depression. Berries also possess this power. They are filled with antioxidants, boosting dopamine production in the brain, and are also, like lentils, rich in folate. Berries can even maximize the effects of tryptophan. The combination of turkey, raspberries soaked in red wine and perfumed with rosemary, and lentils infused with turkey drippings is so delicious that it is impossible for this spell to make you anything but happy. Again, it's a little much in terms of, like, actual preparation. It's a little too high profile cooking for my typical fare, but something like this is actually something I would consider giving a try if I had the wherewithal to do so. But also, it's that knowledge that I'm looking for, because if I know that, then yeah, I can make a bunch of different combinations of berries and chicken or something else. I could make a really nice chicken salad and throw in things like, raspberries or raspberry vinaigrette on it or something like that. I could just grill chicken or something and then throw it on top of a salad full of berries. I love putting fruits in my salad. Okay, I just read duck tart for fighting and I didn't read the fires of inflammation, so I was like, oh my god, this is a power-up item. But this person is very clearly combining those, like, actual physical health parts with the magic parts, and seeing that's really interesting. And the way she divides it, the way she handles it, the way she plates it, which is so cute sometimes, it just gives me a lot of inspiration for my own style of cooking. So that's why I'm not really using this as a recipe book. I'm using this as basically a living Pinterest board, a real-life collection of beautiful images, ideas, and concepts that I can weave into my own practice. Now, Zsa Zak's kitchen alchemy, Slavic kitchen alchemy, is so dear and precious to me, but not as a cookbook. Yes, it is full of recipes. I mean, this whole thing is divided into different recipes based on the season, right? Bosnian pear paws with walnuts for a healthy mind, for instance. I might consider making something like this, sure. It doesn't look too complicated, but also, it's more about the description of what the bear means beside it in Slavic culture that's really important to me, right? Bear's garlic tart for much needed early spring immunity, right? These are some things, honestly, that I wouldn't really make because I'm not, like, a tart person. Like, I don't really make tarts like that. But with all that, she's also giving me talks about the egg in Slavic culture. So much Slavic history. I mean, I learned a lot about the syncretism between old Slavic beliefs and then Christian beliefs from this book. Zsa Zak is a Polish woman who learned a lot from her grandmother and her mother before her, and there's a lot of really, really interesting stories, lore, culture, descriptions, explanations that go way beyond cooking. Like, I'm gonna be so for real with you, I'm never making fermented peas and radishes. Sorry, no. But all of the other stuff in here is really, really, really important. And also, she gives descriptions, right? So rose water for a radiant complexion and calm mind. And she says, roses have been loved and revered since ancient times for their ornate appearance, soft petals, and sweet scent. In Slavic tribes, a rose symbolizes youth, beauty, and love. And so when we get those little tidbits in between the recipes, the sacred linden tree, all these other things, suddenly, I'm not really here for the cooking anymore. nor was I really to begin with. But the more I learn, the more I can break down and apply to my own cooking, the better. And like, there's more than cooking in here in general, just in terms of the actual, like, directions of things. There's a ritual for honoring your ancestors in here. Simple candles for meditation rituals and contemplation. Like, there are candle recipes in here. A ritual for letting go. A fortune-telling ritual with walnuts for an answer to your question. Like, yeah, obviously cooking's a big part of this. But the cooking is really just an anchor for the rest of the story and the knowledge to be woven around. And that is where the value in this book lies.
Hey, baby! Where are you been? No! Mr. Man! Oh my God, baby!
And again, really the biggest book that exemplifies why I don't really recommend the witchy geared books for cooking, especially, is ironically Witchcraft Cocktails. I know that this isn't about cooking. Again, as I said, it technically counts, but kind of not really. But this one is so absolutely overblown with drinks and like the materials needed in it that it has never really been practical for me to use this as an actual drink guide. Luckily, the back has like the bare bones basic recipes for classic cocktails like Cosmos and daiquiris and all that, but the actual cocktails themselves are way too much. Like, for instance, the Black Cat, right? Half a tablespoon of anise liquor, 1 large fresh sage leaf, 2 dashes of Angostura bitters, half a tablespoon of nettle hyssop syrup, which there's a recipe for, 1/8 a teaspoon of activated charcoal, 1.5 ounces of rye whiskey, and 1.5 tablespoons of Fernet Branca. I don't even know what some of these things are. But there's so... What the hell? I'm gonna go out of my way to get activated charcoal for this one drink. They look pretty. They look nice. Although I will say, of the drinks that I have made like the Prosperous Pumpkin, and the next one after that I believe was the Dispelling... What is this? Dispelling Gin Cosmo. I have made these, and they are so strong, and sometimes borderline unpalatable because of the just radically wild mix of flavors in some of these. So, like, even as someone who did try to make some of these drinks, no, no, right? No. And then nettle hyssop syrup. In the start of this book are a ton of different syrup recipes to make things like lavender syrup, honey syrup, all this kind of stuff. And that's great and yay and fun. But, you know, I did try a couple things out of this and it's just too much. Like, it's too much. There's too many ingredients. It's too complicated. There are too many other things to deal with, like all the syrups and all the other extraneous things that make all the pretty drinks all special and stuff. It's like... It's exhausting. It becomes exhausting, and that's my biggest problem with actually trying to do any of the recipes in any of the more obviously blatant witchy geared cookbooks. They're too involved, and it becomes exhausting trying to recreate someone else's meal. But, again, this book, what it does do is give you all kinds of associations that you might not find anywhere else. I love Scott Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs, but they don't tell me in that book what agave does, while this book does. You've got all kinds of things in here, right? Like pineapple, papaya, pomegranate, spearmint specifically. You've got walnut, violet, vanilla, strawberry, sugarcane specifically, hibiscus, milk, lime, coffee. All these things are in here. And, you know, that's, as a kitchen witch, that's really helpful to have that. She also, for some reason, goes on, like, I don't even know why she does this, but a big bunch of associations of certain crystals, certain tarot cards. There's, unfortunately, a whole page on chakras, which is like, okay, thank you for dragging an unrelated religious system into that, but it's really helpful in terms of its actual witchcraft basics, as Julia Helena Haddis calls it here. If anything, the things I do recommend you get if you want a cookbook is an actual cookbook. this thing, the Farmer's Dinner Cookbook, I got this thinking like, you know, farmer means like simple recipes, right? Like, and there are some, like apple butter. Apple butter's pretty easy to make and it's pretty good. But like, what farmer's making fucking kale chips, dude? Nah. But there's like, you know, rustic whole wheat bread. Like, there's nice bread recipes in here. There's a clam chowder recipe in here. I mean, there's stuff that I would absolutely make. French onion soup, pumpkin bisque with spiced creme fraiche, grape nut custard pudding. Yeah, I mean, sure, yeah, there are a lot of things in here that I would totally make. These are real recipes that I would make. And also, what I like about this, because it's a farmer's dinner cookbook, it's divided by the seasons. And so is this one. They're divided by the seasons, which alone can give you a lot of ideas about what's seasonal and what's going to be probably more important magically season to season. Whatever is available growing is usually pretty helpful. And me being Slovenian, things like Cook Eat Slovenia are really helpful for reconnecting with heritage and ancestry, which is a massive part of magic as well. Even if I never make something like fried elderflowers, because where the hell is there an elder bush near me? Still, right, there's all kinds of delicious things in here. Buckwheat porridge with porcini and chicken for the autumn section. To this day, I still make this damn buckwheat porridge. I love this buckwheat porridge. This is where I got this idea from, was this book. And it's like a hug in a bowl. It's so delicious. It's so unnecessarily good. So, yeah, this has recipes that I would have and will continue to make, because it's just food that people actually cook from the culture. Who would have thought? But I have a lot of cookbooks, and while I do try to make recipes from them, because obviously that's what cookbooks are supposed to be for, I find that magically these cookbooks are way better for magic knowledge that I can then break down and apply to other things. If I want a cookbook for the actual cooking, I'm choosing cultural cookbooks. I'm choosing things that I would think have recipes that are actually accessible, right? And even then, I mean, I've bought other cookbooks just for the sake of the stories in them. Some examples of me doing that are this book, Kochen wie früher in Kärnten, which is an Austrian cookbook. It's written in German, but it's also talking about history of Austrian dishes. Kärnten specifically is right there on the border with Slovenia, so there are recipes in here for Slovenian dishes like potica and cream cake, and they have overlap, but they have history. Like, we're talking about the 1800s, and we're talking about like where certain meals came from. We're talking about cultural things. Talking about festivals where things like Florianischen come in, right? Like, and also not only is it history, but for me, it's good German practice too. Likewise, I also do have the sous chef's indigenous kitchen. Not, again, so much for the recipes, although I would love to try these sometime, but also just for the perspective in between the recipes, the storytelling, the history, you know, all these other kinds of information about plants that grow here in North America and how people use them once upon a time and still do. So, for me, cookbooks as actual cooking tools, especially as a witch, aren't really so much about the recipes inside and giving them a try as they are learning about the people who wrote them, the places they wrote them about and that the recipes originated from, and also, in the case of witchy cookbooks, getting more of that holistic medicine idea, getting more of the, you know, associations and connotations of all these ingredients magically. All of this stuff, when you tease it out in between the recipes, they help you just do your own normal everyday cooking with more intention, more knowledge, more magic, and more inspiration than if you just kind of went at it by yourself. So, if you're going to buy cookbooks as a kitchen witch, leaf through them first. First of all, if you're going to use them to cook, ask yourself if these are recipes that you can see yourself getting ingredients for easily, having the time for easily. But second of all, consider what other information is actually in those books. Consider what else they're telling you about. Nutrition and health, history, culture, people, actual magic. consider those things, because if a cookbook is full of that, then even if the recipes aren't like the hottest, easiest things to do, there's still value to be had, and they're still really interesting for when you need some inspiration for a weeknight meal. So with that said, I hope this is a helpful discussion for you guys. I would love to know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you next time for some more Kitchen Witch Chats. See ya!